Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. I am super excited for my guest tonight. We are joined by Mark Wyatt. How are you, sir? Welcome to Let's Get Freaky, man.
I'm fine, Tommy. Thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward to it for some time.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I was saying before we started recording, it's weird. At this hour in the night, I'm talking to you and I'm hearing a British accent back. I'm finding that very strange right now, but it's cool
Uh-huh.
because you're based in the US at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
How long you?
yeah. I'm in Illinois. I I've been out here. What's it now? Four years.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
I'm hearing American accents all the time. So it's not nice to talk to somebody with an English accent occasionally. Sort of remind me of where I'm from.
Yeah.
And what are we about? We're about 100 miles apart back home, aren't we?
Yeah, so you're
Essex to
you're from Surrey.
yeah. I'm from Guildford. Yeah, Guildford in
Okay.
Surrey.
Yeah,
So
so
yeah, it's
we're
probably
pretty close. We could be related.
yeah, I should think so. We probably sound yeah, probably.
So the accent's not rubbed off on
Okay.
you yet. The accent's not rubbed off. You've still kept the
No,
British accent so far.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not very good at doing the impersonations either.
Can I ask how
I
you
do
got
I do
to?
try, but
Can I ask how you got to
oh
the
God,
US? What was the journey?
how long have you got? How long have
I've got all night,
you
brother.
got? It's like, it's not really something I can sort of talk about in detail, sort of publicly,
That's cool.
but just basically, all I say is I met a lovely American girl, and she was into all this stuff as well. She's as into this as you and me. And long story short, we eventually met up, and we're in a paranormal group over here, and we travel around the country, all over the US really. We go to conferences. We get to meet a lot of the people that a lot of your listeners will know, sort of household names almost in this world. You know, um, so we have a good life together, just traveling around. We do a lot of travel, um, West Coast and down to Florida and places. We go all over. Well, the only thing we haven't done the East Coast at all,
Mhm.
so that's something for the future.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, the West Coast, which is amazing. You've got to get over to see the West Coast. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
all of it really. Arizona's great too. Yeah, yeah. It's a great
Yeah,
country.
I want to come
Yeah,
over there. I was telling you before, I feel like that's where I want to be as well. Like, I feel there's a calling. I want to
yeah,
come over
yeah,
there, man.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
one day I
yeah.
can
Well,
join you.
come and visit us. We got a spare room. Yeah, yeah,
I'm coming,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're welcome. You're
So
welcome.
you obviously we're here tonight. We're going to be talking paranormal, and I'd like to
Yeah.
go to the start of your journey into the paranormal. Where does it all start for you?
Hmm. Okay. It really goes back to, well, it's a bit where to start. So my father had an experience. He had about three experiences that I know of, but one major one, and that was the one that my interest in that and basically sparked. Well, that sparked my interest to get me going on it. And then I had other things. I had things happen to me as I got older, but it was that initial experience of his, which yeah, I don't want to go into that again. I've spoken to it so many times, but basically, I was raised on an old gunpowder works site in Surrey, and this gunpowder site dates back, from memory, it's like 1624, something like that. It's either 1624 or 25. That's when they originally set up this gunpowder works. And by 1960, well, I was born in 1960, and at the time, my parents were living on this gunpowder works site. They adapted all these old buildings for remains of a site, and it was very close to that old works, this gunpowder works, where my dad had an experience, a very scary one actually. I mean, I know most ghosts aren't, in my experience, because I've seen stuff. They're not really scary at all. Mine have never been scary. I don't think ever. Um, but my father's actually was, And it was hearing about that from my mum, because my dad didn't like to talk about it because it just creeped him out so much. It was hearing about that. And that was, well, we're pretty sure that was a victim of a, because basically people were being killed all the time on these, on this gunpowder works. And from memory, you're looking at like 50, 60 men at least, and women as well, probably, who have been killed over the sort of 400 years that it was in use. Obviously, by the time we lived on it, it had been out of use for like, I think, just after the First World War, I think it shut down. And then it sort of went through a period of not being used. And then they adapted these old buildings, they called them magazine cottages. And we lived in one of those. But my father was coming home from work and he had this experience where he saw this guy that looked like he was on a bike. And as he went by him, it was like a weird sort of light. But as he went by him, this is like in the middle of, well, in the early hours of the morning, pitch black, no street lights. This is very rural. And this is like 1960, you know, it's where I think it was the beginning of 61, actually. And he went to sort of speak to this, what he thought was a guy on a bike. And the guy turned to him to face him, but there was no face. And of course, that creeped him out no end. So he basically, he was on a bicycle. I don't know if I mentioned that. So he sort of went as fast as he could to get away from this, whatever it was. And when he looked over his shoulder, there's nothing there. It's gone. Whatever it was had gone. And it was his reaction after that happened. But he was about, I think, 5 minutes from home at this point. But that whole area where this happened, it's riddled with, you know, ghost sightings. And I've done a lot of research on it. And I've got a family friend who's not into the paranormal at all, who did all the history of the actual site. And he lived on that site as well. That's how how my father knew him. And then I've done a lot of research on the paranormal side of it. And sort of the two together sort of fit like a glove, you know. And I actually went there with my lady here. This is going back now about 6-7 years ago. And we stayed, there's a pub called the Percy Arms. It's not that far from you. It's what, 2 hours or something. You know, you really need to get over there. It's cool. It's an old pub called the Percy Arms. It's a big, big pub, and it's opposite the village railway station. And it's very, very rural. And the gunpowder works is like a short walk behind this pub, really. And then there's a massive hill, sort of 800-foot hill with a chapel on it. And the gunpowder works sort of lays underneath this hill along a river, which is the Tillingbourne. And I'm going off the subject here, but basically we visited that pub and that area. I wanted to show her this place. And the room we stayed in, there were a few things like lights coming on when we didn't put them on and stuff, but it was nothing really terrible, but it's known to be haunted. Another time, my daughter was staying there with her boyfriend, and she had a few weird things. She saw a guy. She was stood outside this pub at the front where the main road goes through, and she was just having a cigarette outside. And she saw this guy with a hunchback walking across the road behind these cars. And basically, she was just watching him, and he never re-emerged. He never got into a car. And he never went, he never went past the car. So he's sort of just walking along, and then she looking, and he's gone.
Whoa!
And then there's a lot to this. I mean, it's best to. I wrote all this down in the book, and it's got all the details there. But I'm sort of doing this from memory. But I went over to visit her when she was staying there with her boyfriend at the time. And when I left them, I was leaving Chilworth to go to Aldershot, which is probably a 20-minute drive, something like that. And I was on my own in the car. And as I'm sitting there ready to go, I had like a little switch on the ceiling. It was one of these, like for the internal light, but it was a manual switch. You could only work it manually. And it went on and off a few times while I'm sitting there, and I wasn't touching it. It was like someone was saying, I'm here, you know.
Yeah.
So, and again, it wasn't it. I sort of got the, you know, the old prickly hairs up sort of feeling, that sort of cold feeling you get. Um, but you know, it wasn't scary really, just a bit weird. So yeah, that's the gunpowder thing anyway. And I, so getting back to your question, my dad didn't really talk about it too much. He didn't really like to be reminded about it, and he wasn't into this stuff really at all. Not at all. He'd rather avoid it, you know. So I used to have to ask my mum to tell me the story, you know, because she would tell us occasionally, and eventually I did hear him tell a group of us about this, you know. So that got me going. Then when I was a, you know, real youngster, I used to get, I mean, this is quite common. You know this because you spoke. And I noticed when you were speaking to Preston, when I was watching that, sort of similar experiences to what he's had. In that, I never saw, like for me, I never saw little creatures in the bedroom. I never had anything like that. But I did have these very sort of weird feelings, like a pressure building in my head almost, and then a sort of popping, and I felt something was coming. I always knew something was coming. I didn't know what that something was, and it was like an unstoppable thing. But I couldn't. So I'm just freaking out by some odd noises. We've got a refrigerator that just has random strange noises. It's quite off-putting.
I can't hear it on
sorry,
here.
it put me off a bit. So yeah, that did put me off. What was I saying? I'm lost
So
track of where I was.
you had this feeling that something
Oh
was
yeah,
coming.
yeah, and it was like I got to remember I was only a kid at the time, and so when this happened, I used to have this feeling, and I put it down to like dreams. But when I got older, I sort of thought, well, maybe it wasn't, you know. And this sort of feeling of flying, like, and there's the major memory is of floating, not floating, more like flying almost, but sort of just like, I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like I left my body and I was sort of flying along the landing. And we lived in quite a small house, like a council house, by that river, which connects to that same village. We were about a mile away at this time. This is later. This is like mid 60s, I'd say, mid to late 60s. And I felt that I was flying down the stairs. And then when I got to the bottom of the stairs, sort of sudden turn, because I always felt I was going to hit a wall. And and it happened regularly. And I'd sort of think, oh, I'm going to hit the wall, I'm going to hit the wall because of the speed I was coming down, like head first.
Wow.
And then I sort of went through there were like this pane of glass with like little panes of glass, you know, like the mullions sort of split up.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that I went through the window, but like I say window, they're just like little panes between wooden mullions. And there's like a I don't know, maybe 6 foot high or something at the side of this sort of when you turn by the front door. And then I felt I was outside and it sort of felt cold, like I was outside. Anyway, I won't bore you with this whole story, but
No, this is not boring at all, man.
happened, and I felt that. I mean, again, when you're that age, you sort of match it to stuff that you're doing at the time and that you know at the time. So I think at the time I was reading things like Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and stuff like this, and so in my perception of it, I was on like a mat that was sort of billowing in the wind like the breeze, and I felt I was sitting on it, and there was somebody behind me who I could never see, who seemed to be sort of like a guide. It felt like sort of feminine sort of energy and sort of old and wise, and you know, but I never saw it, never saw this lady or whatever. And there were children on this mat, and it's sort of like almost like sloping down. So you've got the bigger ones at the back generally, and then sort of going down to the front where there's infants, you know, and there's some crying, and there's like the bigger children are looking after them. It's just felt weird, you know. It's just very strange. But that was just on one occasion that I can remember. So I had these sort of reoccurring dreams that sort of tied into that. And one that I never, I mean, I wrote this back in 2015, I think, Wyatt's Weird World. I don't know if you can see it there.
Yeah.
And the idea of that was to put everything I could remember from those sort of, well, from earlier times right up to when I was writing it, which was about 2015, I think. And I tried to remember everything and put it in there and sort of give it context as well, you know, what I was doing at the time, where I was, all this sort of stuff. And yeah, sorry, my brain's gone off again.
That's okay.
So one of the things I forgot, and well, the thing is, I put all these different things in there, and I tried to do it in chronological order from like the early times, the early days when I was like a toddler, as much as I could remember, up until like more recent times, like we're talking like 10 years ago. And ever since I wrote it, every now and again, when we're talking about the paranormal, or I'm listening to a paranormal podcast or whatever, something will jog my memory, and I get one of those Me Too moments where something I think, yeah, that's something, and it's something I forgot to put in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things is it's really weird, which I often comes back to me, is I woke up one night when I was probably 9 or 10, and my headboard was against the outside wall of this same house where this happened, and I looked up, and there was like a wolf or Alsatian dog. I couldn't really tell which it was, and it's just the head, but big. I mean, like really, really big, was coming through the wall, like it looked physical, but it had come through the wall. It was like it had poked its head through the wall, and it was just looking around the room. I looked at it, and it was just looking around the room. And you know how dogs and, well, wolves, I suppose, as well, they've got that, you know, like the bottom jaw, and they've got all that. I don't know what it is. I'm not a vet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that sort of black, sort of rubbery, sort of covered in spittle and all that, you know.
Yeah.
That horrible, messy sort of dog.
Yeah, my dog's got it now.
Well, as it was looking through all of that, yeah. So you know what I mean. But all of that was like above my head when I looked up. I could see all of that, and it was so real. It was incredibly real. So this thing just stuck its head through, looked around the room a bit. It didn't feel threatening at all. It just felt like somebody was just having a look, but it was like a dog. And it just looked around. Well, I say dog. It was big, and it was more like a wolf, I suppose. And then I don't even remember it going, but I think it must have just gone out again. And I don't know what that was or why it was doing that. I don't know.
Was that solid? Was that a solid
just
form?
Completely separate to anything else, you know? Well, it looked solid, but it was, you know, it looked like the real thing. It looked like, you know, if I was laying on the floor and a dog sort of, you know, say I was asleep on the floor and a dog came up behind me and just stood behind me, and I woke up and looked up. It was like that. Wow. But it was big. It was really big. So, yeah. So like when I was growing up, I had a lot of these little things, but mostly connected to sort of nighttime stuff, really, when I was younger. But there was a lot of stuff going on sort of locally, because, like, so the gunpowder works was like a mile and a half away or something like that in the neighbouring village. And when we moved from there, because we had to move, because I mean, I was only like a toddler at the time when we moved. Well, not even a toddler. I was like 18 months or something. I suppose, is that toddler 18 months? I suppose it is.
Yeah.
But we had to move because, these premises were the places where we lived. There was about, from memory, I think there was about 15 families or something who lived on that site, this gunpowder works, old site. And the local council, the Guildford Borough Council at the time, they had condemned these buildings, said, they're not fit for human habitation, you know. So they got all the families and gave them a brand new, or nearish, not brand new, but a council house in the neighbouring village. And that was still on, the gunpowder works was on this river Tillingbourne, or just by it, because obviously to make gunpowder, you need like water, running water, and you need like a certain tree, I forget what it is now, alder or something like that, I think, from memory. So you need certain things to have the factory. So anyway, it's on the river. And when we moved, we were also on the same river. and it was used as a like a route for people to get to and from work. Like when the factory, so you're talking like 400 years ago, people would have walked along that river. So we had just weird things like we had an elderly lady living next door to us, lovely lady, and she often used to say to us, "Did you see the men in white coming up your garden path last night?" And we're like, "No, no, we didn't see that." And she would quite frequently see them coming because behind our garden there was like a quite long garden. Then there was like big oak trees, this river, Tillimbourne, open fields, woods, and probably about 3 miles of open countryside, maybe more, going up to these hills, which is where that chapel is, sits above the gunpowder works. And it was weird, but I think she asked me about that. And I asked her family, and they're like, no, we didn't see that. And my granddad, in about 1977, I think, he'd had a stroke, and he used to he lived with us for a while. And he used to just sit in this armchair looking out into the back garden. There's a lovely view, trees and everything. And he used to say to my dad, he used to say, I'm trying to remember exactly his exact words, he'd say, "Oh yeah, like, Bob, who are those men in white? What are they doing in the garden?" So he was seeing stuff. We couldn't see it. And I think because he had a stroke, my feeling is that when you have a stroke, sometimes it just puts you. If you imagine we see everything at a certain, if you see like a spectrum, like a clock face, if you like, we see everything at a certain point. Maybe when they've had a stroke, they see it at 5 past instead of on the. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like they're just slightly off, and they're seeing stuff that we can't see because they've just had that change in their brain,
Yeah.
And so I think he was seeing this stuff, and then I put that together with what the old lady had said to me once, and I thought, well, maybe he's seeing the same thing,
Yeah.
And
sorry, were they connected? Them
that's
two
happened to me. Yeah, so
were they connected? The
yeah,
old lady and
what the old lady and
the
who?
gentleman
Sorry, I'm not with you.
and the gentleman that had the stroke. Were they
Oh
connected?
no, no, not at all. No, no,
Wow,
no.
that's
I
wild.
mean,
Then
he would have known. He would. Yeah, he would have known the lady just by seeing her because he visited us a lot. He would have known her, but they weren't really connected. It would have just been, good morning, and that was it. So
yeah,
they never talked.
that's
They never
interesting.
spoke together. So, and weirdly, yeah. And one Sunday afternoon when I was about, oh God, how old was I? 13, 12, 13. I can't remember now. But I'd been we were having like Sunday tea, as it's like in England in the old days anyway.
Yeah.
So my nan was visiting, and we used to have this Sunday tea thing, like where everyone had to sit around a table, and it was like lots of food and stuff. And I made my excuses to go upstairs to get something for my bedroom. I don't even remember what it was. And it wasn't like nighttime. This was like tea time, but it's winter, so it's quite dark probably. But I went out. I'm not that the dark makes any difference, but I'm just trying to sort of explain what's going on. So it's like 5, 6 o'clock at night, something like that. And I went up the stairs in the same house to go back to my bedroom. So walk along the landing. And as I walked along the landing, I had to turn a corner to go into my bedroom. A hand came down on my shoulder, and I felt it. I felt the hand. I knew it was a hand, and that sort of freaked me out. And I basically just went in the bedroom and shut the door and sort of slipped down behind it, sat down behind the door, trying to get, just trying to get, like, what the hell? Because there was nothing there. No voices or nothing, just felt that. And eventually went back downstairs, I think probably 20 minutes later or something, because I thought I might see something when I went out again, but I didn't. But I think some of that was sort of brought on by myself because I was so into all this stuff when I was younger because I was fascinated by all these ghost stories and everything. And I used to read a lot of these I mean, back in the day, it was, what was I reading when I was a young teenager and stuff? I was reading Arthur Shuttlewood, the Warminster Mystery, the Warminster thing. You remember that?
Hmm.
I was into all that, and Michael Williams used to write all these ghost story books, which I eventually met him. Lovely
Oh
guy.
wow.
Um, who else? Peter Underwood. Yeah, Peter
Yeah.
Underwood. You remember him?
Yeah.
He was a ghost club. He was the founder of the Ghost Club, I think. Michael Williams was his co-founder. I'm trying to think of his books. Like Brad Steiger, all that stuff. I loved all that. So I was reading and Colin Wilson. Now it was Colin Wilson that sort of, I think, had a bit of an effect, because Colin Wilson was a more serious scholar, and he wrote, I think it was The Occult and Mysteries, he did. He wrote those two books among dozens of others. But initially he went into it because he wanted to prove it was all bullshit. And I mean, he would never have said that, but that's my words. He wanted to prove that it's like science could explain all this stuff. But the deeper he got into it, he realized that you can't explain this stuff with the science we know. So he wrote this fantastic book called The Occult, and it delved into all these things like Madame Blavatsky and all these different things, just like into. And anyway, some of this stuff he was talking about. Oh, I can't even remember which chapter it was, but they were talking about astral projection, and they were talking about communicating with the UFOs and just whatever's out there, And there was like a description of how you could do this. And you got to remember, I was just like probably like 12 at the time, 12, 13, something like that. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. I'll give that a go. And I think I was better at it than I would have wanted to have been, because that's possibly connected to the hand, I think, maybe. But it creeped me out to such a degree, it scared me off, really. And so there's like these sort of missing years where I'd been obsessed with it. And then I got to this point and I thought, oh, I've started something here and I've created something, and I'm not too happy about it. I don't want it around,
Mm-hmm.
So for quite a few years, I put it on the back burner, and I got into, I played football a lot, English football, like
Yeah, proper football.
Proper football. You know how it is.
Who's your team? Can I ask who your team is?
Yeah, the one where yeah. Well, Woking. It's just a little team.
Oh, okay,
Woking.
that's cool. I'm
Like,
a Leighton Orient fan.
I don't even.
So.
Yeah, I used to. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Are they East London? Aren't they?
East London, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
East London, yeah.
yeah. Anywhere near West? Is it
Close
near West Ham?
close to West Ham. Yeah, we don't talk about them though.
Yeah.
we
I'm sure you don't. No. Yeah. Yeah. Brisbane Road.
That's it. Yes.
Brisbane Road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's a memory from the past. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. This useless information. It's still up there.
That's not useless. I'm a season ticket
it's
holder.
Funny, isn't it? I would have learned that. Yeah, I would have learned that when I was a kid, because I was obsessed with football.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned my geography, through football, because you'd see a team like, oh no, Blackburn Rovers. Where's that? Oh, it's up north, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, up north. Whereabouts up north? And then you gradually piece it together.
Yeah.
You work out where it is, and you work out where they play. And I mean, when I was a toddler, a youngster, I used to think that Manchester was in Scotland until I was about 11. It might as well be.
Yeah. Everything up north.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, anything north of London is the north.
It's up north. Yeah, everyone's a northerner to us.
Anyway, let me just have a sip. Yeah.
That's awesome, though. I'm a season ticket holder at Orient. I don't get to go as much as I used to.
Oh, yeah.
I've not been this season actually, but
yeah,
I do love my football.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did watch. I mean, we won't bore people with the football, but I will just say that when I was younger, I used to go up to Tottenham. I used to go up to Tottenham all the time. I'm talking from like 70. I used to go up on my own. It was take me about 90 minutes on various trains and underground trains. And I used to go to, this is the time of Stevie Perryman, Martin Chivers, all these sort of people, great, great teams. Used to see Manchester United come down every year. I'd always go to that game. Fantastic game. And Liverpool, used to watch Liverpool when they came down. Just like 50,000 people in the ground. Oh, my. The
Yeah, man.
atmosphere was amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to have some fun. Like, no, I'll tell you another time of football. People don't want to hear about football.
That's cool.
So anyway, yeah, I got into football and I got into the music, and I was always big on music anyway. And that sort of put the paranormal on a sort of back burner, you know. And most of my mates weren't into the paranormal. Well, all of them really weren't into it at all. You know, it was all motorbikes, music, and football.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't really discuss that. They thought I was crazy for like even entertaining the idea that there might be ghosts or UFOs or whatever. So it was many years really before I started sort of taking an interest in it again. I mean, I sort of kept a sort of interest at a distance, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
used to watch stuff on the TV and stuff, and I carried on reading a lot of the stuff. Um, Sort of like, I mean, like I mentioned, Colin Wilson, people like that. Um, but there was like these sort of missing years, I think it was, and eventually I came back to it. But while that was all going on, I was still having these weird experiences, and a lot of them happened when I was like a late teenager, sort of. I'd say from like the age of 19 through mid-20s, quite a lot of stuff happened. And I don't know if that's a pattern with other people. I don't know, but quite a few odd things happened.
So was this at a period where you
Do you want me
were?
to tell you about one of
Yeah,
them?
I want all of them. I want all of them. That's for sure. But was this a period where
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
was this a period
yeah.
where
Go on.
you switched off from the paranormal? You said so, like you sort of
Yeah,
tried to.
really. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. I tried to sort of. Well, I didn't even think about trying. It was just, I just, you know, it's like when you're young, you just like girls, motorbikes, football, music, whatever, and paranormal was sort of always there, but it was sort of in the background. And I think it was mostly because my mates weren't really into it, so
Mhm.
I was hanging out with them, and they, you know, they were doing all this other stuff, like going to see bands and all this stuff. Um, I was lucky. Well, I think I was lucky because of my age. I just like got into like all the punk stuff when it was fresh, when it was just starting in England. So we used to go and watch all these punk bands and stuff. And well, they put that label on them, but they were just bands really. So that lasted a few years. Well, that was exciting times really. Um, but okay, get back to the paranormal. So one of the things that really stands out is I was working as a builder's merchant, and I was at the time I would have been at the end of my apprenticeship. I think I did like a 4 year apprenticeship. So I used to work like 5.5 days most weeks. So and I worked in a town called Woking, and I lived in well, a village just outside Guildford. So it was like it was a very short train ride into Guildford. Then I had to get on another train, go to Woking, and it was like I forget now, but it was like maybe half an hour or something to do the whole thing. And on a Saturday morning, I went down the little station. It's just like well, it's just a very small station, you know. And in the week, if you went down there in the week to get on the train, there might be 10, 15, 20 people at rush hour going into London, you know. But this was a Saturday morning, nobody there. So I go down there. I'm a little bit early, and I'm trying to catch the little train to take me into Guildford so I can go to work. So I get down there, and I'm a little bit early. No one, no, I have to cross from the other side. But so one platform takes you. It's coming from Guildford, well further away. I don't know where. After that, I don't know, but it takes you to Gatwick Airport eventually. If you just follow that line, it takes you to Gatwick. So I have to cross that line to get to my line. So there's a footbridge, and like you have to go down this long slope, and then to get to the and this footbridge goes up. It's one of these that sort of goes up and then up again and then across the top, and then it goes down like dog leg almost. So you go up one side and it comes down the other like that. So I go over the bridge and I get onto the platform I need to be on. No one there at all. And I'm early. So, and I can see from where that platform, I can see about, I've never measured it, but you're looking about a mile and a half, maybe more, to Chilworth, which is the same station that was opposite that pub near the Gunpowder Works. So it's all of this stuff, all of my youth was like in that same area, you know, by this river and so on. But this railway line was dead straight down to Chilworth. So I could see the moment that train came into sight, I could see a little light. I had a little light on the front, maybe two, I can't remember, but there's a little light and you could see it and you could watch it come towards you, getting bigger and bigger as it got closer. So I'm standing on the platform. There's no train at all yet. I'm like probably 10 minutes early or something. And I'm bored, right? I'm really bored. So I'm at the edge of a platform and I'm looking down. You know what it's like. You're looking at all the crap on the line. Like there's always all this stuff that people just throw out the windows. There's like lighters, fag packets, you know, cigarette packets for Americans. There's pens and bits of paper. And I'm just looking at all this stuff thinking, I'm not going to go down there if I see anything because the lines are electrified, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're not going to catch me going down there, but I'm just looking. And as I'm looking, I'm occasionally looking up and I'm just looking around and I can see the other side of the platform where I just come down this slope. I can see all of that clearly and I can see the footbridge and I can see everything on my side and I'm the only person there. So I'm looking and I'm looking around, no sign of anybody. And I'm sort of partly looking down at this line and I'm partly just looking around. Next thing I know, I suddenly see this bloke walking towards me, right? And he's probably about my age now, but he was just like sort of early 60s. He was like, he's a big guy, well-built guy, my height, so like 6'1", something like that. And he's dressed in black, not like a smart suit, but like a working suit, yeah, a bit baggy and that, but he's got this sort of suit on. And he's got a dog collar, you know, the clerical collar, vicar's collar. And by the time I see him, he's almost in my face. He's like a few feet away. And I think, oh, where do you come from? I didn't say that, but where the hell do you come from? Because I would have seen him come across the bridge or come down that slope. But there's no way I wouldn't have seen him. And on my side of the platform, there was nowhere he could have, because he would have had to have come from behind me, because that's where the entrance was onto the platform I'd gone to. It's difficult to explain all this without drawings and stuff. But I've actually got pictures in the book because I got all the pictures to show people. So he just sort of appeared like ninja style. He just came out of nowhere, like, oh, where do you come from? You know. So he walked towards me and he just sort of spoke to me and we started having a little chat. So he was asking me, he seemed like his eyes were sort of, I don't even know how to explain it, but I suppose powerful, like otherworldly, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. There was a presence about him, is what I'm trying to say. Like a strong presence to him. And he starts asking me about my family. And he knows my family. He's mentioning them by name. Like my sisters. I've got 3 sisters and a brother. He knew them. And he's asking me how they are and stuff. And I don't know this guy, right? So he's asking me all these questions. He's asking me what I'm doing and where I'm working now and all this stuff. And all the time, I don't think to ask him, who are you? Because I just thought that'd be a bit rude. I thought, well, I'm supposed to know. I think I'm supposed to know who you are, and I'm going to remember later. But I didn't, obviously, because I didn't know him. So this went on for maybe 5 minutes, and while we're talking, I see that light coming towards us, which is the little train, to take me to Guildford. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, the train's coming now," and he looked round, and we're both looking at it, and then he sort of he didn't speak so much after the train was coming. We just sort of watched it come towards us. So train comes in, we get on the train, and as I say, it's a little train. It's like one of the little electric cars, you know, I don't know what the technical term is. And we get on in the same carriage. And you know the little tables in the middle of the two sets of seats? Well, there was like, as you walked in, say you're in the middle of the aisle, there was on this side, there was like 2 seats, a table, 2 seats. And on this side, 2 seats, table, 2 seats. Now, there was a young couple on my left who were like in their 20s, I'd say. And yeah, on my right hand side, he sat down first, and he sat down on the right on that first bit. As you sort of get on the train, you turn left. He sat on the right there by the window, and I sat opposite him. And I thought I was sort of curious about him, and I wanted to find out a bit more from him, who he was and stuff. But he'd sort of, so the train starts off, and it's a very short journey into Guildford. So you go under this bridge, and I've sort of realised, I've sort of sensed his energy is a bit lower now. It's a bit quieter. It's like he'd been quite chatty on the platform, and I think I tried talking to him a bit, but he'd sort of drifted off a bit, and he's just looking out the window. So I thought, okay, I'll give you your space. I'm not going to find out who you are, sort of thing. So he's looking out the window. We go under this big bridge, the bridge on the A281, if anyone's listening who knows. And on the other side of that, a little short way after, there's meadows and Shelford Church. And you bear in mind, he's got a dog collar. And Shelford Church, you can see it on the distance. You can see the spire coming up, and from the now. I've got a history with Shelford Church, which also sort of ties into it, but get to that in a minute. So as he's looking across the meadows, I'm watching him, and then sort of looking at the view, looking at him, and because I'm curious about this guy, and he's like, he mumbled on sort of almost to himself. He sort of said, I'm trying to remember what it said. He said, "Oh, it's just as I remember it," or something like quite sort of strange. It's just like I remember it. And he's like quite emotional. He sounded quite emotional when he said it. So I'm chatting, and he's still sort of talking a little bit, but not much. And it's a short journey. So we're having this sort of back and forth, quiet sort of chat, not saying much. And while I'm talking to him, the couple that are on our right, this young couple, I noticed that they're laughing. Well, not so much laughing, but they're sort of sniggering to each other, and they're sort of looking at me. And I'm thinking, that's odd. I wonder what's going on here. And I thought, well, what are they laughing at? And I didn't feel insulted. I just thought, that's weird. They're laughing, So we get to Guildford. This is like, I think it's about 5 minutes. It's really not very long. You go through this really long tunnel, and then out the other side. So I get there, and I've got to get off this train. And there were other people on the train, but they were further down. There's quite a lot of people, but they weren't on our little section. So I get off the train, and I go out the other side on the other platform, because I got on this side, I get out off that side. And as I walk by the window where I've just been sitting in that little compartment, I looked in because I wanted to get a look at him again because there's like a subway that drops down. So I wanted to get a look at him because he's not there. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. But maybe he's in the crowd somewhere. But he was a big guy. You wouldn't miss him. He's got a dog collar on. Yeah. So I'm looking for him. By now, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm looking through all these people, and there was quite a few people. Some of them are going to a footbridge, which goes up and over. It goes over about, I don't know, 8 platforms or something. It's quite a big station, Guildford. And there's also a subway. So some people are going underneath and along. Some people are going up. So I've got my work cut out trying to figure out, well, which way did he go? Which way did he go? Because I want to see this guy and see where he goes or whatever. There's no sign of him. So I'm sort of just about to go down the subway, and I can't see him, but it's a long slope. Can't see him. So I think, okay, I'm going to go to the footbridge. So I quickly come out again, and I sort of rushed along to sort of try and see if I could see him. No sign of him. And I didn't see, oh, when I looked in the window, the young couple weren't there either. So they might have just got off. I don't know. But well, that's basically it, really. So I just can't figure it out. Now, thinking about it afterwards, I thought, well, maybe the young couple were sort of laughing and sniggering because they couldn't see the guy.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought it's just this nutter talking to no one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just my thought. I mean, it might. So
Wow.
maybe he was just there for me, you know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you had
It was
this
just freaky.
connection.
But then
That is freaky.
I did, yeah. But I did some research on it, and I should say that. So the village where this happened is I was raised there. Obviously, when we moved from the gunpowder works, like a mile and a half away, whatever it was, 2 miles. I was raised in this village, and when I was about, trying to think now, about 8 or 9, my mum made me join the local choir, which, yeah, it was fine. I enjoyed it, and we had a little football team there as well, so that was great. And I had a lot of friends in it, and it was quite funny really because the choir boys were mostly from the posh part of the village, right? And I was from the council estate, so like it's like, but I was one of the sort of, I wasn't like, if I say so myself, I wasn't like one of the rough kids. There's a lot of rough kids, but I was sort of in the middle somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had a
Yeah.
foot in both camps, and there was quite a lot of some of these posh kids who were in the choir went to private schools. Well, most of them did, whereas we all went to comprehensive schools. You know, so there's like, but I always had that foot in both camps because I'd grown up with these kids as well, and they're nice kids. So I was in this choir. So I knew, but the point I'm saying is because I knew that church and I knew the people, and I'd been there. I mean, I wasn't still going to church, but I knew these people. And my best mate, one of my best mates, his dad was the local vicar, and I obviously it wasn't him because I knew him well, and I knew what they call the what do they call them, the lay preacher or whatever. They had like a backup preacher, and
Yeah.
I knew him or knew of him. I knew what he looked like, and it wasn't him. And I even asked my mate Tim, because whose dad was the vicar, do you know? And I described this guy to him. This was years later. I spoke to him. And I told him of what had happened. He just thought it was a case of, oh, you probably didn't see him get off a train, and but he had no idea who it was. But I did research on that station, and I found that a kid well, say a young man had committed suicide on that platform where I was, well, on the same side anyway. And basically, the story goes, and this is, I've got the newspaper cutting, or I've got it back home. He had been, so this young girl had been working with like a maid. So we're talking about 1870-ish, this was. She'd been working as a maid, I think it was, for the local vicar. Okay. This is way before I was around, 100 years or whatever before. She'd been working for the local vicar. And this local lad, Edward, whatever his name was, I'd have to look at it, but his name was Edward something. He had this crush on this girl, and he was in love with this girl. But this girl had other plans, and she'd got a new job in Basingstoke, which is, I think, about 20 miles away or something. And he was really upset that she was going to go. I think she was living in with the vicar as a maid or something, or at least she was working there. So this young lad had gone to this all came out in the inquest and stuff. He had gone to the vicarage, and basically sort of said, can I speak to whatever her name was? I can't remember her name now. And the vicar was like quite nasty to him, and he regretted that. This all came out in the court thing. And he'd said that he'd sort of sent him away, sent him on his way, like, don't bother her, she's working, and all this sort of stuff. And the boy had gone down to Basingstoke, boy, he's probably like 17 or something. He'd gone to Basingstoke to see if he could see his girlfriend, and seen her with another guy. And obviously he was very upset. And he told a mate But he said, I wish a train would run over me. This is all going to tie in a minute. You'll see what I'm saying. He said that to a mate. So he was basically, that's how he killed himself. He did do that. He did throw himself in front of a train. And this would have been steam engines in those days. He threw himself in front of a train on that platform. And this is just like a tiny thing that I found when I dug into it. And it's not common knowledge. I mean, no one, I found it when I went back through the records of I think it was Surrey Advertiser. It's like the big local paper. And the vicar was very, he regretted the way he'd been with the boy. He sort of regretted, he thinks he should have been nicer to him and helped him. And he felt responsible for the kid committing suicide. Now, if you think about, I was a young lad, I was 21. I was always looked, in the old days, I always looked younger than I was. So like when I was 21, I looked about 16, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I was the only one who did, the only one who didn't shave, I think, at the time, you know? So I was very young looking. So I think that my feeling is that he saw me. This is my guess. I was standing on the edge of a platform, just standing there looking at all this stuff. I was genuinely looking at the crap. I didn't, just bored.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that this guy maybe haunts that area. And maybe he thought, oh, this young man's having suicidal thoughts because he's standing by the edge of a platform. Right.
Yeah.
So then maybe he tried to speak to me to find out.
Wow.
That's just a guess. I mean, it's just a guess.
Yeah, but it makes sense, man.
But it does. It sort of ties in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, but we don't know, do we? We can only guess at it. So,
but I think there's something to that when
I did, yeah.
When you have that knowing that this character stood out, there was a lot of strangeness around the whole situation, and that wasn't a normal interaction. Yeah. Interesting, man.
Yeah. No, it was just like something that's always stuck with me. I've had so many things that like peculiar things happen, but 2 or 3 of them sort of stand out. Whereas a lot of it is just little things that are just so boring.
Not for me.
Sort of run of the mill stuff. They got no story. Yeah, there's no sort of story to them. It's just like, oh, this weird thing happened.
Yeah.
I mean, we get it all the time. We get it in this house where I'm sitting now. We're living in a. It's not actually. We've lived in. We just us two have lived in since 2017. I'm trying to think. We've lived in 1, 2, 4. God, what was it? 3 or 4 places. I think because we buy places, do them up, and then get another one, do it up, and so on. Although we got sort of stuck during the old COVID thing, we got it slowed everything down. So we were sort of stuck. But most of the places we've lived in have been haunted. I think everywhere is haunted, to be honest. But they were more noticeably haunted, whereas this place isn't, as far as I know, it isn't. But we do have. This place was a miner's shack. So we're living in sort of a tiny village. Well, it's not that tiny really, but it's a village. Sort of quite near Springfield in Illinois, and it was a mining area at one time. So there are mining shafts like underneath everywhere, So this was a mining shack, and then it gradually got extended out and out and out. So it's going to take a lot of work. We got a lot of work to do on it, but we occasionally have sort of visitors here, but we don't. I mean, I've seen a few things lately actually, but I have been on tramadol, so maybe that might explain it. So
it might help.
I've been on tramadol for my bad. I should say it's for my bad leg. What do you call it? I'm trying to think of a name of the thing. I can never remember the name of it, but I've got this bad back which put my leg out.
Man!
So I'm taking this tramadol for the pain.
Yeah,
the pain's pretty good. It's pretty good now, but I'm still taking them. But anyway, it's just strange things. Like I've got into the habit of so my lady Jan, she likes to go to sleep quite early. So sometimes I just go to bed. We just go to bed, and I put the TV on, and I like to listen to. There's people who tell stories, like from old horror stories and stuff, like short stories, and I love that. It's really good. So I've been trying to work out who the ones I want to listen to, because some have got better voices than others. We've all got
Hmm.
our favourites.
Yeah.
So I was just listening to one of these, and it was about 1:30 in the morning. This is like a couple of weeks ago. And as I'm sitting there, I was sort of drifting off, I suppose, really. But I saw somebody walk through the wall and just keep walking, like there was a door there, but there wasn't a door there. But it was like very quick, like blink and you miss it. And it's like, whoa, what was that? Just little things like that all the time. I've
Hmm.
only seen that particular thing once, but we get like sometimes there'll be a sudden coldness, and we both sense it, and I'm more aware of that now. When I was younger, I wouldn't noticed it. I just, but I'm sort of more tuned in now.
Hmm.
So I sort of,
Do you think there's something to
sort of
that?
expect, and
There's something
yes,
to when you tune yourself in.
mm,
Like I found it since starting this podcast. The
yeah,
more the more I'm talking about it, thinking about it, the more you seem to experience.
yeah, yeah.
Like you open yourself up to it, I
You
think.
bring it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think that's what happened. Like I say, if we go back to what I said when I was like a teenager, sort of late teenager. Um, Actually, it wasn't that. It's probably 15, 16 or something. Um, I was so into it, and I was experimenting with like trying to bring this stuff in. Like, I can't remember the book, but one of these books was saying, "Oh, you can communicate with these UFOs. You just send the thoughts out there, and there's a certain way you've got to use your hands, like the whole praying thing. If you go to church, they teach you to sort of go like that, don't you? Your hands together and all that when you're a kid and that. But the reality is, you do it with your hands open like this. So you're like a receiver, and you
Hmm.
can feel the energy. And I've done that. I've done that, and I've experimented a lot with that. When I was younger, I did it, and I'm sure it brought stuff to the house. Um, there were sort of peculiar things, and if we go back to when I was younger again, I'll tell you another couple of little things. So years later, I sort of instinctively knew this stuff, but I didn't. No one had taught me, but I sort of instinctively knew this. But if you think about haunted objects, so I didn't know back in like the late 70s, early 80s, no one ever talked about that. No one. I never heard that anywhere. But so a friend of my elder sister, he was at an air show in the mid 70s, and it was in Somerset in England. And I'm not quite sure if I looked in my book, I'd probably find it, but it was mid 70s sometime. And there was an American jet, like a army jet or navy jet, I'm not sure which it was. And it crashed somewhere near the airfield site in Somerset. You can find this online, you can find it. And this lad, I still know him. My sister still knows him, a nice guy. I won't give his surname. His name's Mick. And Mick and his mates, who were just young guys then, he's like 70 something now. He basically, they were looking for bits of his plane because like it blew up, and they wanted it sounds horrible now, but they wanted a souvenir of this.
Hmm.
And nowadays, if it happened now, they'd probably shut all the area down and you wouldn't be allowed in and all this. But they found a piece of metal, which is like, you see it, well, 2 foot, 18 inches, 2 foot long, something like that. Sort of jagged bit of metal. And it had this sort of red, flaky paint that was sort of peeling. And it was like an aluminium. It looked like aluminium. I don't know if it was aluminium. It looked like aluminium. It's very light. And it was just this red thing. So he had this in his home. He was like, he'll be about 7 or 8 years older than me. So, yeah, he'll be about 72 now. And he bought his home, had it in his home. And at some point, maybe a year or so later, he came round. He was going out with my sister at the time. He came round and he said, "Oh, here we go, Mark. You can have this." And he told me the story of where he got it. And I thought, "Oh, that's cool." So put it in my bedroom. And around that time, and I didn't sort of know this, but around that time was when a lot of this activity was going on. Like weird thing, like the hand on the shoulder and all this sort of stuff was going on. And there was another thing, and my nan used to go to South Africa. She travelled all over the world, right? She was amazing. And she used to go to South Africa with all her friends because they had relations. Her brother was there actually. And she would always come back with a little present for us kids. And she brought me back this, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it's like a dark wood with like a horrible sort of ogre type face on it and like horsehair, like a tail on it. And it was horrible. I mean, it was like, why? I don't know why she bought me that, but it was like a souvenir and she thought it was interesting. And it sort of was. And also an assegai, like a shield with the spears
Hmm.
made from like, I don't know, like a buffalo skin or something like that. It was like a leather, very thick leather. And I used to have them on my wall. And when these things started kicking off and happening a lot, I instinctively thought, what is in my room? Is there something in my room that's causing this? And I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I'd never read about haunted objects. I just felt there was something there. And I didn't know whether it was the metal or I don't even know if it was metal, but it's like an aluminium. And or it was the African thing. I didn't know, but I
Interesting.
suspected it was one of them. So what I did, it sounds stupid. I think I threw the African thing in the rubbish tip in the dustbin out the back. I think I broke it up and put it in a bag and chucked it away. And a bit of metal, and I feel bad saying this, but I really feel bad. I lobbed it over into. I was just a kid, I lobbed it over into the field. I know exactly where it is. I could go back and have a metal detector, probably find it. But there were never any animals in this field after a certain time, so no one was going to tread on it. But I just thought that they might be connected, and I think possibly that nothing much happened so much after that. So they may have had some going on,
Interesting. Yeah,
possibly. Yeah, yeah.
that is interesting
Yeah. I
because
mean,
haunted objects is quite a big talking point now in the paranormal.
mm,
A lot of people have,
mm,
haunted dolls and all sorts of different objects, and
yeah,
I think things do carry
yeah,
energy. Like so, that's very possible. It's interesting that it stopped
yeah.
once you got rid of these objects as well. That is
Yeah, well, I'm
interesting.
not sure that it. Yeah, I'm not. I can't really I can't really promise that it did stop because
Hmm.
stuff was sort of always going on. And the trouble is, at the time, I never kept a diary. I never wrote things down. So that's what this was about. This was like in 2015, 16, whatever. I wrote that,
Hmm.
but it was reprinted. But basically, that was an attempt to try and remember all this stuff and sort of jot it all down in some sort of order of how this happened. And I had to work it out because I wasn't 100% sure of the dates and stuff. So I tried to figure it out through what was going on around at the time and all this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so as I say, I've never been one for keeping a diary, and even now, um, stuff happens quite a lot now. Just little bits and pieces happen. I mean, we go on investigations ourselves occasionally, but we don't do these big ones where there's loads of people. We just try to go. Well, for example, um, in Janice's family, they've got a property which isn't lived in. It used to be lived in, and it's just spare now. It's out in the country, and it's built on a. It was built in the 70s, I think. I might be wrong, 60s or 70s, by my lady's father, and it was a staging post. And this area was going to be a growing town. This is in Illinois, but somehow the railroad that was going to come through, somebody did a backhander and it went to another town, so they never got it. So it never got the prosperity that they thought they were going to get.
Yeah.
But so now it's just in the middle of the countryside. So this house is empty. It's my lady's son is a builder. He's doing it up slowly. Now, several things have happened there. He's heard things. So he's been in this, the middle of nowhere, really. He's been in there and he's heard voices. a guy that works with him, who we know well, a guy called Brent, he's been in there and he's been working, and suddenly he'll hear a lady's voice, like somebody's coming into a house and they're sort of saying hello, like that, and there's no one there. Now, I went there with an investigator. You can look his name. He's a fantastic guy called Larry Wilson. He's a great, if you want a great guest, perfect. He's brilliant, and he doesn't do too many podcast things really, but yeah, I'm sure if you want to talk to him,
get him on for me, man.
Fantastic. He was a private Yeah, he was a private investigator, like like a sort of policeman type thing, and he got interested in the paranormal not that long ago, probably 15, 20 years ago or something. And he just got into it and he got deeper and deeper. And now he goes, there's places here. You've heard about, what's his name? The ranch where they have all the weird
Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Skinwalker. So there's a graveyard here, and we've been there. Oh my God, I'm going all over the place.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
But anyway,
no problem.
This is what happens when you talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, I go back to the first story. So he came along with us, and the three of us, so Janice, myself, and Larry, this investigator guy, we sat at a little table. It's not like a house that's all done up. It's just like Josh keeps all his timber and stuff there for this job he's going to do. So it's quite messy. But it was lived in, I've been there when it's been lived in, when it was a family home, not that long ago, three years ago or so. So it's empty now. So we're sat in there around a table, and we've got recording devices, and Larry is telling us about some EVPs and stuff that he's caught in Springfield, not at this house. And he's telling us all about it. And while we're sat there, and I've got a recorder going, listening to him, recording him, and while we're talking about this other place, I hear this lady say something, I think something like, hello. And I look around, there's no one there, there's no one anywhere now. And I said, you can hear this is all on audio. I've got all this on audio. And I say something to Larry. I said, did you hear that, Larry? And he goes, and he thinks I'm talking about his recording that he's telling us about. And he goes, and so I said, no. I said, here, when you were talking, I heard a lady. So we played it back the next morning, and sure enough, it's caught it.
Whoa.
This lady's, like she's walking into the house.
Yeah.
So, and it's not, and the other thing I should say is one of the builders who we know, it's not part of the family really, he was working there on his own, and he'd heard this before this happened. He'd heard this lady, and they were on a new building site, and we went over to see him, and I said, Brent, you got to listen to this. And I played him that audio, and he went, that's what I heard. So it's exactly the same. I didn't sort of what's the word, prepare him for it. I was also just have a listen to this. So he wasn't like forewarned of it. He was just heard it. He goes, that's what I heard.
That's wild.
So, Larry, there's a graveyard here called, I think it's about 10 miles away or something. It's called Williamsburg or something. Yeah, Williamsburg Hill, I think it's called. It's like a little village. And Larry does a lot of work there. And he's sort of known as Will Hill. It's like a shortened version of Will Hill. And he goes there a lot, and he goes there on his own. This place is the weirdest. So I don't know where to start with that, but one of the stories he was told, there's a gardener there with his ride-on tractor, right? So he's there, and he's told Larry this, and he's a genuine guy. It's not bullshit. This is what's happened to him. It's like, it's on a hill, it's a graveyard, right? And it's surrounded by like forest, like woods, deep woods. It's difficult to get to. You have to know it's there. Little windy lane takes you in there. And it's the creepiest place I think I've ever been to. So he was there, this gardener. He's just finished cutting some grass. and he puts his ride-on mower. Larry showed me where this was. He parks it up. I think he put the handbrake on, but he put it there, and he went off to do something, probably to have a pee or something. I don't know. But when he come back, like a couple of minutes later, the ride-on's gone. It's just not there. So he looks around. He thinks, oh, maybe left the handbrake off or something, and it's gone. So he's looking around. There's no sign of it. There's no tire tracks. There's nothing. The ride-on mower. There's nothing. There's no mower. And there's all around. There's gravestones, right? There's trees. There's gravestones. So it had to. Oh, so I should say, he eventually found it. There's like a field gate that you enter this graveyard, and beyond the field gate, there's like a big, like a valley, but it's not used. There's trees growing in the valley. You can't get down there really. At the bottom of the valley, his ride-on tractor is down there. Like, there's no way that tractor went from where he left it to there, because it wouldn't even do it if a handbrake was off. It would have gone about 6 foot and hit a gravestone or a tree, because they're just dotted around everywhere. So this thing, I should mention, there's a lot of Bigfoot activity in this place.
Oh wow!
There's Bigfoot activity in Illinois. I mean, I've never. Well, I can tell you one thing about the Bigfoot. So, I don't. It's like I say, there's so much of this stuff, and this area is fantastic. I think most of America is, but
yeah, man,
this area, you'd be surprised. It's because it's a very flat area generally, and there's not a lot of. Well, not in this part of Illinois. There's not a lot of woods and stuff, although there are some. So yeah, and getting back to Will Hill, this place I was just telling you about, we'd heard all this stuff, and we thought we've got to go out there and look at this. So we went out with Larry, and Larry's telling us all the stories about what he's been told, what he's experienced. He's experienced like weird, like something in the woods was like tracking him. With like we seen weird lights, he's heard whistles, and it's not a place where people go up and mess around. It's like in the middle of nowhere. Like and to go there, you'd have to drive, so your car's going to be there. There was nothing, when he's been there, and he's got like balls the size of, I don't know, Brazil or something. He's a very brave guy.
Yeah,
because I can tell you, I would not do what he does. I would not do it. Because like this place has got a reputation, and he sees all sorts. He sees these lights and things. Oh, one of the weird things about that was, one of the. I'm trying to remember how this goes, but there was a little girl there with her mother at this graveyard, and the little girl had been speaking to an elderly lady, and she went back to her mother. And she said, that's right. She'd said, the old lady had evidently said to this little girl, would you like to play with the children? And this little girl said, yeah, where are they? She said, they're under the ground. So, so then she ran to her mother. She was upset. She ran to her mother, told her mother, and she said, where is this old lady? Because she wanted to tell her off. She thought that was like bad taste. Yeah. But there was no old lady. But the little girl had seen one. Yeah, just like freaky stuff,
man.
So they're under the ground, So
that's wild. And you say there was.
Yeah, possibly... I don't know where. We're going off in all sorts of.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it, man.
The Bigfoot thing is quite. Yeah, now I should add, I've never seen anything knowingly seen anything like that. But there's so there's a place near Springfield. I won't say exactly where it is. I don't want people all clambering in there, but it's not even a big woods. It's a small woods. And the reason, I haven't been there recently, but the reason we go there is because there's a lot of old railroads, disused railroads. And they always, if you look at the landscape, you see like this, a row of trees generally, not always, but you see a row of trees. And I don't know how wide they'd be, but not that wide, And running through the middle would be the old line. Now, sometimes the line isn't there, but you'll see where it was. And there'll be lots of the old spikes, like they call them, like banging, Yes, spike, that's right. So we, well, we'd been there before, and I take a little rucksack in, and I bring back as many as I can. I don't want to bring too many because they're heavy, but you can find these spikes quite regularly, And
Hmm.
I don't know, I just like the look of them, and other bits of old railway lines and stuff, but not the actual track. You never see the track hardly ever. And old sleepers or ties, as they call them here. So we went over there one day, and it's like I say, it's not a massive woods, and it's quite near a fairly major road, I suppose. So we park the car the other side, and we walk over, and we go cut through. There's like a little entrance in. Hardly anyone ever gets in there because it's not. Other stretches of this railroad people do go on because it's been sort of manicured a bit more and people walk on it. This is not manicured. This is just wild inside. And there's so we walked in, and I noticed this really weird, like it's difficult to even explain it, but it was like a shadow that moved through the trees, like just like black, and it just went and it just moved really fast. And my first thought was like, well, maybe it was birds or something, and they all took off when we came in. And we figured out later that, because at first we thought it was something like that, or maybe animals outside, like in the field. But it couldn't have been. We worked this out later because it would be too high. This was up in the trees, so I don't know if the trees were 40 foot high or something. This was like from like 20 foot to 40 foot or something like that, and it just
Whoa.
moved really quickly, like that. And we both noticed it, but we didn't really know what it was. It was just strange. So anyway, we carried on, and we're walking along this railroad track. It goes quite a distance, and eventually it comes out to like an open field. So it's quite a small area. So we're walking along it, and a general thing is we had a dog with us at the time. She's sadly passed now, but we got two others now, but we had a dog. So we went to the end of this track, and the actual track area is quite cleared. You can see what's in front of you. There's nothing really there that sort of blocks it, right? So we're walking along it, get to the end, and then we come back again. When we came back, there was one of these spikes laying right in the middle of a path, just laying there, like it's clear as day. There's nothing around it. There's just that. Now, I never put it there. Janice never put it there, and we would have seen it. You couldn't miss it if we
Yeah.
walked. And I was sort of collecting them, and there's one just laying there. It's like it had been gifted to me.
Yeah.
So
Which is
we
Bigfoot.
wondered whether there was something in there. Yeah, which I mean, like that whole Bigfoot thing. I mean, it's like I don't, you know, I think there's a lot more to that than just. Well, we all know this, don't we? But there's a lot more to that than just this hairy creature.
Hmm.
There's something deeper than that going on, and I think a lot of them. We're back to that thing, like I said about when my granddad had the stroke. I think he could see things that we couldn't see, and I think the same thing applies. It's like it's just off a little bit. We can't quite see that. Maybe we see glimpses of stuff.
Hmm.
Occasionally, some of us see it. Like you might see it, I might see it,
Yeah.
but I think that's the same in the woods. I think there's something in the woods generally that
Yeah.
lives in the woods that we're not aware of. And I think they saw me collecting these things, and they sort of, oh, we give him that one, like and
Wow.
spook him out or something. But
Yeah.
there were no people in there. I mean, we would have seen them. There were people in there. We would have seen them
Yeah.
because it's not that big an area. We would have seen them.
Yeah.
So I think,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah,
I think that
there's
though,
so
especially with
much
the
we could
cryptids.
talk
I
about
mean,
this all night.
yeah, and I'm up for it, man. I love it. I think
Mm.
with the cryptids, I mean, my opinion changes every day with the paranormal, with all of the paranormal. But I do feel like at the moment with
Yeah, yeah,
Bigfoot,
yeah, yeah,
Dogman, I do think that there is a supernatural element to these things. I know some people say flesh and blood, and I do think that there
yeah,
is
yeah,
possibly flesh and blood creatures
yeah,
as
yeah,
well. But yeah, man.
yeah, yeah,
So to get
yeah.
glimpses
I
of
know. I
these
don't know
things,
what to make of it. Yeah,
interesting. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Going back to
yeah. I
when you
mean,
was a little boy and
yeah, I mean,
you saw
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
dog head come through your bedroom.
The dog, the dog thing. Yeah,
Did you see
yeah, yeah.
anything else like that? Was that like a one-off
Well, I
thing,
can't.
or was there anything else like that that
No, it was
stands
one
out?
off really. No, I never really. Well, when I was younger, I never saw anything. I never like when you listen to people talk about like abduction stuff. I'm not,
Hmm.
I've never seen. I sort of had that weird feel like I knew something was coming, but I never
Yes.
ever saw anything. Like people say, "Oh, I saw this little creature in the corner." I never saw any of that. Um, although I saw ghosts. I mean, I have seen ghosts. I've seen several actually, and I've seen different types of ghosts. I know I've seen them, and
Hmm.
like a skeptic can say, "Oh yeah, right," but I know what I've seen, and some have been solid body. I think maybe that vicar might have been a ghost. Who knows? I don't know. I think he probably was, but sometimes they are solid, and you don't know that they're. You don't know they're ghosts until they're not there.
Hmm.
Um, and I've also seen like sketchy ones that look like artist sketches, and they move like a sketch. They're sort of shaped like grey, blacky, well, grey more than that. So yeah, I mean, one of the weirdest ones I saw, and I'd have to look at the book to find out where this happened, but I lived in Northumberland for quite a few years, and we had friends that were custodians. I saw a few things up there, but we had friends who were custodians for English heritage, and we went. The girl Deborah, she used to work at Prudhoe Castle, which was like well, I saw something there, but that's another story. But that was a Norman castle, 1200 and something. I think they built that one. But she moved from there. Her husband still worked there. He was my mate. He worked there. They both worked there, but she got moved to this other place in oh dear, I'd know the name if I saw it. I'd have to have a look at the book, but it was a bit further north. I think it starts with a B. Anyway, it was an old coal mine, and it wasn't in use, but they'd got it was like they had an open day, or I think they did it quite regularly, and they had like it sort of showed you how things were back in the day, and they had a little railroad, well, like a tiny miners one with little bucket train thing, you know what I mean, with steel to put the coal in and all that, and there's like little seats on it, and you could ride on the train. And my kids, I have three kids. My kids were this was about 90, late 90s probably, and they were all young. And we went to visit partly because we knew that Deborah was like in charge of this site, and we thought, are we going to get first-hand experience, shown everything, But she was busy. We didn't have much to do with her. She was really busy, and we're wandering around. And as we're wandering around, I see this guy coming towards us, and he's got like I can still picture him. He's like how to explain him. So like darks. I wouldn't if I say suit, it sort of brings up like smart, doesn't it? But he wasn't smart. He was a miner.
Hmm.
He was wearing like sort of baggy sort of black trousers, a black top, like a jacket, but it was all sort of black and dirty. His face was like just covered in coal dust, but his eyes, it was his eyes. As he walked towards me, it was like they. I think they know who can see him. That's my feeling. I think they know there's some signal, there's something that we carry with us, I think, that we can't see. And
Hmm.
they know, and not everyone will see them. But I saw this guy walking towards us. I'm just walking along with my family at this open day fair thing. And this miner is coming towards me. Now, I didn't know at the time, but I mean, I knew there weren't any miners there because I knew it was this old pit. It was near Ashington. That's it. It's coming back to me now, near Ashington. And this guy's walking towards us, and I clocked eyes with him, and we're looking at each other. It's almost like he wanted my attention, and he got it. It was like magnetic almost. And I'm looking at him, and I can see the whites of his eyes as he's coming towards me. He's looking at me, and as he's getting closer, I'm getting a full on view of this miner, and I'm thinking, well, that's weird. right? And as he passed, I looked round like that to get another look. There's no miner. There's no miner, and he
Wow.
couldn't have gone anywhere.
Yeah.
So then we spoke to Deborah later on in the afternoon, and basically said, "Have you got any what do they call them? Like when they dress up and like reenacting actors, whatever they call them." So, and she said, "No, we don't have any." And I said, "Yeah, you sure?" "Yeah, definitely none." So I saw
Wow.
something, and but not, the weird thing was, I was with my wife at the time, and my children were all young. None of them saw it. None of them. So I
Wow.
was the only one who saw it. So
That's wild.
that's the sort of thing. But it was all over in like, yeah, it was all over in like, less than, I don't know, a minute,
Yeah.
something like that.
Man.
So I've had a lifetime of this, but
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
think, because
yeah.
a
So
lot of us have
mm,
these experiences when we're kids, and I think when you accept it as a kid and you
mm,
take it into your teenage years and you accept it, then I think you just carry on experiencing stuff when you're really open to it. I don't know why there's certain
yeah,
people
yeah,
like myself and
yeah,
other people that I talk to that have a lot of experiences, that see a lot of strange things, and there just seems to be something about being open.
yeah, yeah,
It seems to normally start from being a kid.
yeah,
Yeah, man. So interesting.
yeah, yeah.
You know when you were
So
saying,
so have you've had, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
yeah, I've had a lot of
I was just going to
experiences as
say. So
well.
you've had a lot of experience. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear some of yours then.
Well, I saw
I'd
one
like
of
to hear some of yours.
I saw a ghost in my room
Yeah.
when I was 10 years
All
old,
right.
and like you,
Yeah.
he was a full-bodied man. Like
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
saw him in the street, he looked like William Shakespeare. But if I saw him in the street, I'd have been like,
Right.
that man's dressed as William Shakespeare. But he was, I wouldn't think he was a ghost. He was
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
He was there, And after that experience, for
Yeah. Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew that there was more to this world. And I've had more
Yeah.
experience. I've seen shadow figures, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of weird stuff, man.
Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
more hearing stuff and
Yeah.
things like that and feelings. But my kids see stuff.
Yeah. So
I think it's,
yeah, it's clairaudient, isn't it? They call that. That's what I am. I think I hear things more than I see.
yeah,
Yeah. Actually, I see quite a lot, but I hear things a lot.
yeah. I
And
think I
I
think
think that quite often ties in with music. Are you musical?
I do like my
Do you play
music. I've never
instruments
really.
and
I did try the
yeah?
electric
Because
guitar once,
oh,
but I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah.
I'm not
But
really. I do
maybe
like
I've often
music
thought
though.
there's a link. Yeah, a lot of people in this game, what's this game in this world, in this paranormal world. I mean, I get to meet them like because I go to these conferences and stuff,
Hmm.
and quite a few of them are. I mean, I think about it, quite a few of the podcast hosts as well are musical people.
Interesting.
And I wonder if there's some sort of connection. Maybe, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. It's just an idea, but
Yeah. No,
um,
it's interesting.
yeah. I mean, I can think of. I'm not going to give names, embarrassed, but there's quite a few people I can think off the top of my head
Hmm.
who are quite big in this paranormal investigation sort of world, and they're musical. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. I mean, yeah. What were you saying just now? Because it's something you said just now, and you know how when you're saying one thing, it's oh yeah,
Yeah, I do that
and
all the
it's something
time,
you
man.
said, it triggered me, and I thought, oh yeah, that's cool. But
I
yeah, I
would.
do, and then I forget what it was.
Yeah. It really annoys my
Mm,
wife when I do it.
mm.
But I wanted to ask you, going back to
Well,
when
yeah,
you was a kid and you was
yeah,
having these out of body experiences,
yeah,
and you were going down the stairs on,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
is that something that carried on? Can you do that now, for example, or did that stop?
No, no, that stopped. I can't remember doing that in recent times. I mean, I weirdly, I had something weird. This is a tiny, tiny thing. It's not. It just sounds weird, but you mentioned that. Now I know that when you leave, or there's like that moment. Like to me, it's like a pop-in thing. Like it's like I'm being squeezed into my head. It's like my whole being is suddenly in my head, and it's like I want to bust out. I want to bust out, and it's pop, and then it's like oh, I'm free. But that's how I remember it when I was younger.
Wow.
And I had I had a weird thing a few weeks ago because, like I mentioned earlier, so yeah, I'm on this medication for my bad leg. Um, so basically, it could be connected with that, and it probably is, and it may be tiredness as well. So I was laying in bed, and I went to put my head. No, so you imagine the pillows there, the back of my head's there. So as I put my head back on the pillow, I felt my head hit the pillow, like it would, but then it sort of carried on through the pillow, and my head felt like it went like back,
Whoa.
and then it sort of popped back in again. And I think I was almost out, because they say that there's that moment between sleep, and that's the best time to try. And if you want to try to do it, it's
Hmm.
between awakeness and sleep. There's like that moment where you can pop out, and you've got to, it was involuntary. I mean, I wasn't trying to do it,
Hmm.
and I think I almost went out then, sort of without meaning to.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I didn't, but I just felt that it was really a weird feeling. Like, I can't even explain it, but if you can imagine, your head goes back, and you've hit the cushion,
Hmm.
and then it just carried on. And I thought, well, that's weird. My head's gone right back, but my head was still here. But my head, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you could feel
It
it.
was like my
Yeah.
physical head was here, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
very odd feeling that was.
So when you was a
So
kid,
yeah, I
when
mean,
you was a
like I said
kid
earlier,
and
a
you was
lot of these things are
experiencing,
just tiny things. So
no, but I think the tiny things are
yeah,
important as well. It all adds up, man. But that
yeah,
when you
yeah.
when you was a kid and you was
Well, yeah, yeah.
experiencing that out of body experience, could you go wherever you wanted to go in that state, or
Yeah.
was it something you could control?
No, I mean, no, I mean, the only, to be honest, the only memory I've got of doing it is really like one. I
Oh,
had
okay.
the, so my memories are of the feeling that I knew something was coming and I had to go somewhere, sort of thing.
Hmm.
And it's so difficult to explain it. I try to explain it in the book, but so it wouldn't happen that regularly, but it may be maybe a couple of times a year or something. I don't know. And I would, how to explain it? It's so hard. But so I would get this feeling like, so go to bed as normal, whatever. And then at some point during the night, I would get this feeling, oh God, here we go again. Oh no, I don't want, and like a dread, feeling of dread almost. And then all the memories would come back. I would think, oh, I've done this before. I've done this before. But when I went to bed that night, I didn't know anything about it. I'd forgotten. So each time this happened, I would forget completely about it afterwards, complete everything about it until it happened again. Then I'd have that moment where I think, oh, I've done this before. And it's the only way I can explain it. So you do remember, but then you forget immediately afterwards, the next morning or whatever. Um, but the only occasion I remember actually doing the flying thing was that one occasion. But although I think it happened a lot, but I do sort of vaguely. There's just like one memory,
Hmm.
which is I've been on this sort of mat that was fluttering in the breeze, and there's kids on it, and I was one of the kids. There's something behind me, sort of like a guide or something. It wasn't like scary. It was like, oh, we're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And we flew down the road on this mat, and I could see all the rooftops of my street as I went down. This was a long road, and when we got to the bottom, this is a weird thing. This is so weird. So when we got to the bottom, because I knew this road quite well, and I was only a kid. I was like about 6 or 7 when this happened, and there was this little cul-de-sac at the end of a street. Probably I'm trying to think, one, two, about 10 houses, maybe something like 1930s semis. And this is again, it's difficult to explain the geography of it and everything, where it lays. It's quite near that railway station, quite near that, very near actually. But anyway, we sort of, as we were flying over, well, I say fly, it felt like we were flying. It's quite fresh, like cold, not freezing cold, but like a bit breezy. And I'm looking down and I'm seeing people's back gardens, which I couldn't see when I'm walking down the street. And I would, you know, maybe I knew a few people down the street, but I'd never been in. like the vast majority of his houses, I'd never been in their back garden, but I could see their back gardens. And when we got to this cul-de-sac, there was one particular place. This is so strange, and I could see a climbing frame. I don't know what we call them climbing frames, don't we?
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
got another name for them in America. I can't remember what they call them, jungle gym or something stupid. I don't know. So it's got, with bars where you go like that and you go across the top and you climb up
Yeah.
the sides. It's for kids, but it's not that big. But I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, that's cool. Now I knew the house, but at the time I didn't know who lived there. I had no idea. So cut to like I'm at school and there's a new lad. I still know this lad, actually. He lives in near Godalming. No, Borden in Hampshire. And I'm sort of in touch with him distantly, but he was like my best mate when I was 6 or 7. So he was a new lad in the school, and well, I think it's fairly new. And he invited me. So you got to remember, I'm like 6 or 7. He invited me round for tea, like after school, you know. So there was just like I had to ask my mum, and she, oh yeah, you can do that. So I didn't know where he lived. So when we left for school, which was, it's the geography of it, is I can see it in my head, but obviously people listening haven't got a clue. But from the school, you come out the back of this primary school, instead of going home like I normally would, right down this long street to near the river, it was just off to the right towards the railway station. And I sort of vaguely knew he lived over there somewhere. So I walked home with him because we were going for his place for like his mum was going to make us tea and so on. So we get in there and it's that same house, which I'd seen in my dream. So we get in there and we have tea and what have you. And then we went out in the garden and we were kicking a ball about, but I didn't want to play football at the time. I was just like, let's say, very young. And he had 2 older brothers and they were kicking this ball about. It's quite a long garden. And I thought, I'm going to go and play on the climb. Now, this climbing frame was surrounded by like a hedge. So you couldn't see it. You had to go through this opening in the hedge, which was like a little bit wider than we were. And it was sort of tucked away in this sort of separate compartment at the bottom of the garden. It's a hedge off route, like a room, outdoor room sort of thing. So I said, I'm going to go and play on your climbing frame or something, and ran off down the garden. And they sort of like ran after me. And we sort of get on this thing, and I'm playing on it, and we're all climbing all over it and stuff. And they asked me, how did you know we had a climbing frame or something? And I couldn't really answer it because there's no way I could know.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, I mean, they probably forgot about it that same day, but I've always remembered it because it's like, yeah, how could I never told them.
Wow.
I never said, well, I just dream and I was,
That's wild.
but I saw it. I saw it as clear as day. And it's like, it's a tiny thing. It's not,
But
it's,
it's a big thing
it,
though, because it
it's a
means
stupid,
what you saw
yeah,
validates that experience.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've so many little things like that.
Wow.
Just coming up to date, I've got some more interesting stuff from. So one of the places we lived at was in Illinois. We were sort of between properties and everything, and we were in this little flat, and it had a bad feel about it. I never liked it. It was dark and gloomy. It was horrible. Neither of us liked it, but it was like a temporary place, and it was just so bad. I used to have quite a few dreams there, and like there was a bloke talking to me in a dream, trying to sort of make himself known to me, sort of thing, and But anyway, so Janice used to have similar dreams about this, and she had somebody yeah, that's right, somebody. It was a man, and it was an American man. I mean, I'm in Illinois, and I sort of can hear the accent in my head now. And he's trying to tell me what his name is. And and because I'm like I say, I've never kept a diary. I'm not very good at recording dreams and stuff. I'm just not. I'm hopeless at it. So this guy was trying to tell me who he was, and I just thought it's just a dream, But obviously, when I'm awake, I'm thinking maybe it wasn't a dream. But Americans have this thing where they have the middle initial, and I'm trying to think of an example. Dwight Eisenhower, okay, is a classic example. I think I might have got this wrong, but they say Dwight D. Eisenhower. I might have got that wrong, but they pronounce that middle initial and they make it last, like So
Yeah.
it might be like, in my case, it would be like if I was American, I might say, "Oh, my name is Mark A. Wyatt," like that, right? So this
Yeah.
guy told me his name, and it sounded like that. So whatever the first name was, I can't remember it now. This is why it's awkward. Should take notes. He gave me his name. He gave me his first name. The middle name sort of went like that. D. I think it was a D, and then the second name. And when I woke up, I was like, he was trying to tell me something. Somebody's trying to tell me something. So he's trying to give me his name, and it was like a voice. That's what I didn't tell you. So I'm laying there in bed, like half awake. It's a voice, like not actually in my head, but by my ear, like someone's saying, coming up to me when I'm half asleep and sort of saying, I'm, John Osgood or whatever it is. And then Janice had a dream in the same bedroom where a voice, similar voice to what I heard, I think, was saying, "Oh yeah, now what did they say? There's a I can't remember exactly now, but it could be like there's a grave. Oh, I could call her. She's in the next room. She'd know it. Um, it's something like there's a body beneath you, or there's a grave beneath you, something like that. And we think, well, we sort of know now that there was when they built these flats, there would have been people. There's like old homesteads and stuff, and I think the flat was built over some poor bugger who was buried there, basically.
Wow.
And I think he was trying to tell us that he was, yeah. I wish I could remember what she heard, but it was similar. It all sort of fitted together.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, she had a really creepy one where when I wasn't there at the time. This is like going back to, I don't know where. Maybe it was when I was still in England, because I was sort of going back and forth a lot. She woke up one night in the other bedroom in this place, not the same bedroom, and there was a guy, not a flesh and blood guy, but looked like flesh and blood, stood in the corner of a bedroom. Like these shadow people type people.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a shadow, but it was a real solid. And there was a guy stood there, and she panicked because you wake up and you see. So she thought it was a real bloke. So she's panicking, and she went to run, and she tripped as she went out the door, and she smashed into she hurt herself. She had quite a nice bruise.
Yeah.
And she clearly saw, but when she went back in the room, there's no one there. And it wasn't a physical bloke. I mean, it wasn't someone who crept out or something.
Yeah.
And she's had quite a lot of that. I've touched wood. I've never had that. I don't want that either.
Wow.
But,
yeah. We'll have to get her on as well.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, she could tell you some stories. Yeah, really good stories. Yeah,
wow,
she's been involved with a few things. Yeah, and we're part of a paranormal group over here.
Yeah.
It's hasn't been around for a while, but some really good people in that. Yeah, what is it called? Prairie Land Paranormal.
Okay.
Yeah. There's quite a few people over here. You'd be interested in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Larry Wilson is probably your best bet on that one. But
Yeah. So interesting, man.
I don't know. I don't want to bore you with all
Brother,
the stories, but yeah, there's so many,
you've not
so
bored
many
me at
stories.
all, brother. You have not bored me
Yeah.
at all. I could
No.
listen to you talk about this all night, man.
Well,
It's fascinating. It's a
oh, right.
difficult
Well,
question. But
is
no,
it
sorry,
what?
you go. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Go on then.
No, I was going to say,
No, I wasn't going to say anything. What were you going to say?
what do you think? And it's a difficult question. It's a very open question, but it's a question I ask a lot. What do you think is
Okay.
going? What do you think is going
Yeah.
on with the paranormal? What do you think is happening? What do you think it is? And I know that's very open because it could be a lot of
Right.
things.
Yeah, I know it's so difficult. Isn't it? I mean, like, okay, so with the ghost side of things, uh, I don't think it's all. I don't think it's all. How can I put it? I think some of them are okay. I can only go by what I feel, and I don't know. I don't know, but I can just say this is what I feel.
Hmm.
I feel that some people when they die, we've all heard this a dozen times, well, hundreds of times, but I think some of them hang around for whatever reason. Maybe they're scared to move on because they feel they've been bad. They've done bad things, and they've maybe been going to church all their life, and they've, especially if they're Catholic, they're told, this is evil and you shouldn't be doing this and you're going to burn in hell. So they're reluctant to move on because they believe that. And I've actually seen, I shouldn't say this, but I've actually seen that fear in an elderly guy. I'm not going to give his name, but a nice guy that I know around here who, during a conversation, he's genuinely scared of what might happen to him. He passes on. So yeah, I can understand how people do they maybe don't move on.
Hmm.
So I think there's some of that going on. I think, and obviously there's all this like the unfinished business and all that stuff. So I think some of it is spirits of people who do. And is there like, I don't think there's like a sell by date on that stuff either, because if you think about it, some ghosts that are seen to go back to like people see Roman soldiers in York in England,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and probably other places,
Yeah. There's a
So I mean,
forest right
that's
near
what's that,
me.
2000 years?
Yeah. There's a
Oh,
forest.
do they get seen there?
I can't remember the name of it, but it's very close to me, and I've been there a
Yeah,
few
yeah,
times. And people see apparitions of
yeah, yeah.
Roman soldiers walking through it.
Roman.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was a
Yeah. So,
Roman.
so I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, so getting back to your question, I don't know because like some of them will be people who've lived before, and they're sort of hanging around doing their thing, whatever that thing is. And then you've got the residual thing, which I don't want to. People who listen to you know this stuff anyway, but it's just like if somebody does something throughout their life, like in this house here, somebody might have been here for 50 years, and they might have done the same movements every day around this place,
Hmm.
had the same habits, and and they walk the same thing at the same time, and it's like you're wearing out a path, and then you get that residual thing. So like somebody might see that, but they're not conscious. That isn't a spirit. That's just like some sort of memory that's implanted on the ether or whatever.
Yeah,
So you've got different things going on there, and I think some of it is. I mean, again, you're getting into like a religion thing. If you think some of it is like maybe beings that have never been human who are just messing with us, and maybe they're evil. Um, and again, if you come to the evil thing, some people say, well, there's no such thing as evil. It's just so you've got the religious side who think everything's demons, and then I mean, it's like if you think about it, it's like if you think about wild animals, you think about a shark. I mean, a shark will kill, but it's not evil. It's just nature. It's just
hmm,
doing its thing, isn't it? It has to survive, and that's how it survives.
yeah,
So that's my interpretation, rather than oh, this is bad, that's evil. Although there is evil, clearly there is evil. We've seen it around us.
hmm.
Our history tells us. So I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult question because I don't think there's one answer,
No, yeah, no,
and
I
there's so
agree.
much involved. I mean, like if you say paranormal, I mean, it sort of encompasses like when people
Everything.
talk about things, they compartmentalize them. I think it's all part of the same thing anyway. I think
Yeah.
you know it's like a poltergeist. If you hear, oh, I've had experience with that as well. Actually, we both have. But um, if you see, some people might see something and, oh, that's a ghost. Other people might see it as a Bigfoot or whatever. Or it depends what happens. If it happens in the woods, it's a Bigfoot. but if it happens in a house, oh, it's a ghost. So it's like they're the same thing. We put different labels on them. That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'll tell you my sort of poltergeist. I think it was poltergeist. I had a poltergeist experience, I think. So how long have you got? This is like this
Uh,
will take a while to tell you. But
I've got a night,
so
brother.
okay, so this is a really odd one. So there's a place, there's a state in America which we go to every now and again called. This is weird. It's called Arkansas. You must have heard people talk about it.
Yes. Yeah.
They got Arkansas or something. I can't, whatever. Now, before I came to America, I used to think it was called Arkansas because that's what it looks like when it's written
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And I soon found out, no, it's Arkansas. And yeah, so anyway, so there's a town there, a little town there, which is amazing. If you come over, you've got to go there. It's called Eureka Springs. So obviously it was a place where they had springs, and back in like late Victorian times, it was an attraction. Sort of a Wild West type thing. It isn't a Wild West, but it sort of is. It looks like that. The buildings are of that era. It's a very old town, and it's not most American places in this area are very American. They're like very straight lines. Everything's a straight line, squares, whereas Eureka Springs is more like England or Scotland. There's windy roads, there's a mixture of properties, and there's more brick buildings. You don't see so much brick around here.
Hmm.
So it is a bit like places in Britain, to be honest. Eureka Springs, beautiful place. So we go down there quite a lot, and we stay at various places whenever we're there. And it's an old town, really old. So I'm trying to think of a name of the place. So there's quite a few places that are known to be haunted there, and they sort of push that as part of the touristy thing. They do push that. So we went to this place, but we went to a place called the Basin Hotel, which is well known for it. But we never saw anything there, but it's well known for it. And they were doing like a ghost tour. It started up on the top floor of this place. We went to that, and there's a guy in a suit doing his talk, and he's got all the chat, and he's telling me stories. He's got all the history. He knows all the history. He's really entertaining. And then he said, "Oh, after we're going to go down to the cellar, and there was like a whiskey where they make whiskey and stuff, and you can have a little sip of this whiskey and stuff." And he said, "Whatever you do," and he did tell us. He said, "When you leave this place, cleanse yourself. You sort of when you go into a property, it's known, you cleanse yourself so you don't take stuff home with you."
Hmm.
And we have done that a few times, too many times. Now we know that stuff, but we still forget to do it. So we went to this thing. We had a little whiskey come round, and no one, we never saw anything. We just enjoyed the trip. When we finished there, it was I think it's a Saturday night, and I was bursting for a beer. I needed a beer because I was thirsty. And I thought, we got to get a beer because it was getting late, and I thought I'm going to miss closing time. So we went out of the basin, and we went. I don't know the names of the streets, but we just tried to find the nearest pub sort of thing. And the place we were staying at, I'm trying to think of the name of it again. Oh dear, it'll come back to me. But Grand Central, I think it was called the Grand Central. Yeah, Grand Central. So we went up to town. I'm trying to find someone to drink. Now this is a weird story. So we find this bar. We go in this bar. It's these crazy steps, like concrete steps with like graffiti over them, like multicolored. It's not like just graffiti. It's like meant to be like that. You know what I mean? It's a very arty town.
Hmm.
So we go up there, and halfway up there, there's this bar so we go in there and just want a beer, And I would go to the bar. It's not that many people in there. And this is sort of necessary to tell you this. This isn't the haunting bit, but it's sort of relevant. So I go in there, and just the two of us. I ask very nicely, very politely for a beer, and and this bloke says, "Have you got any ID?" Well, it's like in England, you don't need ID. If you look old enough, they'll serve you. And of course, I was in my late 50s at the time. So, like, I didn't look like a kid, you know. And he got ID, and I was like, well, no, you know, and so, you know, you can see I'm old enough, you know, why do you need ID? Oh, we've got to have ID. And he was really awkward, right? And I thought, well, that's a pain in the ass. And I was really pissed off. And then I started, I was out of character because it wasn't the way I normally am. I'm normally sort of very quiet and nice. But we think something had latched onto me. And I became this really, like a different character. And I was really, and Janice would tell you if you ever speak to her, like, I was just, you know, I was just acting like I was, I don't know, just Mr. Nasty, you know, like this bruiser, you know, and I'm not, you know. And I was really aggressive, like really, not physically, but I was really aggressive, like having a go at them, like, oh, so if you came to England, we'd serve you, you know, we wouldn't be so, you know, and I was like having a right go at them. And there were people sitting around the bar, like, and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't drunk. I hadn't even had a drink. I had a tiny little bit of whiskey. I wasn't drunk at all.
Yeah.
And there's people at the bar looking at me like, whoa, what's going on here then, you know? And he just wouldn't serve me. And I was so pissed off. And I was sort of yelling at him. Like I was trying to get them riled up because I felt like I wanted to put one on them. I'm not like that, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I got out there, and we left there, and she was dragging me out. She was like, "Come on, get out!" And I'm like, "No, I'm going to have a go." And I was having a go. Like once I started, I was off on one, you know. And it wasn't like me really, but I was doing it, and I was quite enjoying it. That's the other thing. I was quite enjoying it. I was really enjoying that, being that character. You know? And then so I just got out, and I didn't really think about it till the day after. And I thought, well, that wasn't me really. I'm not really like that. So anyway, we come out of there, and cut a long story short, we go back to a hotel where we're staying, another hotel called the Grand Central. And we go in there, and it's in sort of darkness, but there's a little bar in the corner. So there's a guy in there. There's a guy and two ladies. So we go in there and we say, "Oh, is the bar still open? This is getting quite late now." And the owner of the bar was there. She was like a little old lady, lovely lady. She was of Welsh descent. She told us that. And there was a very tall lady, powerfully built lady, sort of like 60-ish. They're both like quite old. And the guy behind the bar, nice guy behind. Anyway, they served us, had a little chat, all of us, very friendly. And we asked what we always ask, you know, is this place haunted, right? So the lady says to us, the owner, she said, oh, no. She said, we used to have, I forget what she said, but I think she said, we used to have 6 ghosts or whatever it was. We used to have 6 ghosts, but we had a, what do you call them? And, you know, a exorcist, not exorcist, what's the word? You know, to clear them out. Well, of course, as soon as she said that, we just looked at each other and just like laughed because we know, like I'm sure you do, you never really get rid of them. If they only go if they want to go, you know. So they probably just went quiet for a while, you know. So we thought, oh, this is going to be an interesting stay because we'd only booked in like earlier in the day. We hadn't stayed there. So we had quite a long session in the bar, not drunk or anything, but just having a laugh. And the lady was telling us, this is sort of a side story. The lady was telling us about her husband who was upstairs in bed, not very well. Otherwise, he would have been in the bar with us. And he was a musician. And she gave me the name. She said, "Have you ever heard of this bloke?" And I said, "Well, I haven't." And he was in a band. Oh God! And they were quite famous in the day. She was the wife, and I met him in the morning. But anyway, the name will come back to me. Jerry Yester, that was his name, and I hadn't heard of him before.
What was the name of the band? He produced
the. Yeah. Oh God! I bet there's people who'll be listening to this going, I know. Yeah, Yester, like yesterday, but just Yester.
Okay.
He produced a lot of albums. He produced the Monkees. Yeah, the Monkees actually did. I'm trying to think. It's called. Oh, I can picture the cover. But it was the first album that the Monkees actually played on, where they all played, and they all did their thing. The first one. Before that, it was all like session musicians. But this one, they insisted they're going to play on it. He produced that.
Wow.
And he actually played bass on it as well. He did actually do it.
Wow.
But he did some really big names. I'm trying to think of who they were. But anyway, I met him. So anyway, forgetting that for a moment, we go off to bed eventually, about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I can still sort of picture this room. So we're upstairs and we get in this bed. It's a quite pokey little room, high ceilings, because it's a very old building. We're on the top floor. And just above us is a flat roof. So we try to get off to sleep. And there's this row going on, right? So I wouldn't even say it's a row. It's like a heated exchange. It's not quite a row. And it's like we can hear two girls, well, we think it's two girls, arguing with this bloke. And it sounds like they're trying to get in the room and he's not letting them in. That's what it sounds like. And this goes on. It's really loud. They're shouting at each other. Then there's banging on the walls. There's like, we didn't know where the sound was coming from, but it was like all around us. So like I couldn't pinpoint where it's coming from, and it was like a real din, like just like it was almost like workmen building over in the middle of the night, maybe in the room next door or upstairs on the flat roof or whatever. And it was so loud. And every now and again, when I was just getting so pissed off, we both were, it would just die down. And we'd think, thank God for that. So there's always voices, always arguing going on. And this went on, and I'm not joking, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning before it finally stopped and I was able to sleep. And I think Janice got off a little bit earlier. So it just went on all night, just kept dying down, then starting again, dying down, starting again. And I'd think about going to complain, but I think, well, what's the point? Because they obviously know it's going on and they're obviously doing what they can or not. So anyway, the morning comes, I go down to the reception and I want to know I'm not angry. I just want to know what was going on. So the woman who was on the reception wasn't on the day before, we hadn't met her. So I said to her, what was going on last night? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, all that noise that was going on. I said, I didn't get to sleep till about 6 o'clock. And I told her what was going on. She said, no, I've not heard any of that. I said, well, you must have had complaints from people. She said, no, nothing at all. And that's when I met that Jerry Yester guy, because he was sat by the bar with his dogs. He had some dogs with him. And he was like listening to what I was saying. And he's like, what? And I was telling him about it. I said, it was going on all night. I said, I assumed you would all know about it and you'd be talking about it. And he wasn't staying there. He just, evidently he went in there regularly because he knew him. He just came in like social, but it was just the weirdest thing. But the weird thing was, when it was happening, we didn't think, oh, this is poltergeist stuff. We just thought, we've got builders on the fucking roof and we're trying to sleep.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I went. Think, what? How inconsiderate! Or they're working in the room next door. Why would they do this in the early hours of the morning? Why would you do that? I couldn't get my head around it.
Yeah.
So that, I think, looking back, it seems obvious. It seems obvious now, doesn't it? But yeah. Have you changed for that?
No.
I thought it was me.
Not that I know of. So that lady that said that the ghosts were, the lady that said the ghosts were gone, she was wrong about that. Possibly.
Yeah. Oh, she was wrong. Oh, she was definitely wrong. Wow. Definitely wrong. And when we're talking about hotels and pubs and ghosts, right? I sent you a photo, didn't I?
Yes.
Do you remember that with the cowboy in it?
Yes.
Yeah. That was in. That was a good one. That was another one that was in California, in a little old mining town. It used to be a mining town where the Cornish settled. And
Cornish, did you say so?
Welsh, but it's mostly Cornish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they used to come over to. Well, they went to America, all over America, and they went to Australia, Mexico. They went all over the world, and they took their tin mining skills with them. So in America, there's certain places There's Grass Valley, which is where this one is. There's Mineral Point in Wisconsin, where you can see Cornish architecture on the mine buildings and on the cottages,
Wow.
and and they got Cornish names there. I could talk about all night on that. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But
man.
I'll tell you a story about Grass Valley. So Grass Valley is in California. It's not far from Sacramento, but it's like, I don't know, 20 minutes away. I might be wrong, but about 20 minutes away, because we were staying there. And it's a little town, tiny little town, really. Lots of lovely old architecture and stuff. And the pub was called the Holbrook Hotel. So we decided, because we knew it had a history of miners and all this sort of stuff, but we decided not to ask when we got there, is it haunted? Because we thought if we knew up front, it might prejudice what we might do, see. What do you know what I mean? It might put it in their head. So
Yeah.
we thought we're not going to ask them. But we assumed it would be, because it's pretty obvious it would be, really. They always are. So we went there. Now I'm just trying to think. Yeah, so the room was fine. We never had any issues in the room, nothing at all, really. But there's a big bar area, and I think it was about 5-ish, something like that, in the afternoon. And we're sat in the bar area. It's fairly quiet. There's a few people about, and I had this urge, and like I said, I've learned to listen to this inner voice, if you like, And I thought, I've got to take a photograph of the bar. And I'm just sitting back and I'm thinking, okay, so I just start taking pictures. And there's one guy who sat at the bar, an older guy, sat at the bar, and he's looking at his phone. Well, you've seen it in the picture. He's looking at his phone. There's other people in the bar, but they're not really anywhere near. I think a bloke had walked by, and he was just off. You could just see the back of him, couldn't you, walking off? But I took a photo of this guy, not of the guy, but he's there. It's the bar. The bar was beautiful. Just, I love his old bars with the mirrors and all that. So I just take a photo, and I took another one straight away after it. I might have taken more than two, but I took at least two. Just click like that quick. And when it came out, the guy sitting at the bar in the first one, in the second one, there's a little, looks like a cowboy, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, that's the picture I got in my head. It looked like a cowboy walking past him,
Yeah.
but just part of him, really, like the top half. So then we see this, and I speak to the trying to think. I've even got a card. I've got a business card in my office. So Andrea, something I think it was. So anyway, we spoke to her the next morning, and I said, I've got to ask you. I said, I took a photo yesterday, and I said, but before I show it to you, can you tell me, are there any ghost stories connected with this hotel? And she said, yeah, there is. She said, there's a cowboy is occasionally seen. People say, oh, I've seen a cowboy. But he's only seen from the waist up for some reason. He's just the waist up. So, and then I said, well, I'll show you a photograph, which you've seen. And she goes, yeah, that could be him. But in the first picture, he's not there at all. In the second picture, he's there. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I think I caught something with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that picture,
yeah.
and you can definitely see it. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
Well, that's so interesting that they've got the cowboy there that they know of, and then you've caught that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Man.
And again, I think they know. I think these spirits know, whether you can see them or whether you're, I don't know. I think they just sense it somehow. They know.
Yeah.
And I think he was deliberately. So I think that urge I got to take that picture, I think he planted that. I think somehow he's like, take a picture.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that picture carefully, I mean, I know some of it's in your imagination when you look at it, because you sort of fill in the gaps, don't you? But I can see a guy who's looking at me. If you look at it, it looks like he's looking at me. Yeah. So he's like walking by, and he's like that.
Wow.
So yeah. If I ever go back there, I'm going to try and capture him again. So
yeah. Man, Mark, I have absolutely loved talking to you tonight, brother. I think we've gone over the 2-hour mark, I believe. But man, super interesting. I would love to talk to you more, man. I feel
Well,
like there's
I'm
more we
glad you
can talk
enjoyed it.
about. I'm super interested.
Uh,
Thank you so
no,
much.
no, no, I better sign off.
But
Thank you.
you're
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
you're welcome back
And
anytime.
yeah,
Can you tell the listeners where they can
thank you.
find
Thank you.
you?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I should have a website and I haven't because I'm lazy and I haven't got around to it, but I will do. But in the meantime, yeah, I mean, I've got a podcast, but it's sort of in, how would you explain it? I haven't, I did 25 episodes. It was called the Cuckoo Town Podcast. It's
Hmm.
still out there. And there is some paranormal interest. I mean, it's not all paranormal, but most of it is. Because I'm interested in the arts and culture and the counterculture and all this sort of stuff. And so high strangeness, it all sort of blends together anyway, a lot
Hmm.
of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cuckoo Town Podcast, which I do hope to do a second season. I just haven't got around to it. I'm trying to, but I've been so busy doing other stuff. I've done three books, both three books. So Wyatt's Weird World, it's all on Amazon. That's like a collection of loads and loads of stuff. Some of it we mentioned tonight. Um, when I did The Spirit of Cornwall, A Haunted Legacy, volumes 1 and 2, which is a lot of spooky stuff, just where I interviewed other people, most of it, about things they'd seen, UFOs, ghosts, you name it, it's all there.
Hmm.
Um, after that, I did a essay for Joshua Cutchin's fairy films, We Folk on the Big Screen, which is about how fairy culture, fairy folklore has
Interesting.
sort of got its way into film. So you watch a film, and not every film, but a lot of films you'll watch. I'm not talking about the obvious ones like Labyrinth. I'm talking about more subtle things where you
Hmm.
don't really know it's fairy folklore. But once you know fairy folklore, you can see it in the film. And sometimes it's unconsciously there, like the director may not have known he was using it.
Interesting.
So
Can you give us an
there's
example?
so I yeah, like let's give an example. So Twin Peaks.
Hmm.
I did an essay. My essay was on Twin Peaks, and I didn't know there was really any fairy folklore in it at all. I just thought, oh, I'm going to have a look at Twin Peaks because we all had to choose a subject, a film, or I chose a series, which was a bit daft really because it was like three series. It's a lot you've got to look at. Whereas most people were choosing a film of like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was a bit daft to do that. But I didn't think about that until it's too late. But I did my essay on Twin Peaks. It was all about the folklore that's in Twin Peaks. There's loads of it. There's loads and loads of it.
Hmm.
And it's all tied into like the Nordic and the German folklore and the Irish and the Scottish and Cornish. It's all there.
Hmm.
But it's quite subtle, but it is there. And
Interesting.
some people chose, there's I can't think of all the films. Somebody did actually do Labyrinth, which is a more obvious fairy film, but they did a really good take on that as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, fairy folklore. I did that. I did an essay on that. There's I think 10 people contributed. That was Joshua Cutchins. He was the editor, and if you, I'm sure most people who are into his stuff know of him.
Hmm.
Well, so and I did Mystic Memoirs, which was I can't think of the name of the publisher now, but I did an essay. I told them about a weird sighting I'd had of basically a large owl, which was another weird. We won't get into that now; it'd take too long.
We'll save
But
that. We'll save that for next
um,
time.
yeah, yeah. So I've done one, two, three, four, five books. Three of my own, two I've contributed to, and I'm working on a few now. I've got a few that hopefully will be out within the next month or two.
Awesome.
So yeah, and as I say, got podcast, Cuckoo Town Podcast, and what else can I tell you? That's about it, really. Yeah,
Awesome
and
stuff,
yeah,
man.
my if anyone want, yeah, if they want to contact me, I've got a email which is I don't mind giving it out. Mark A Wyatt, so at zoho.com. Oh, sorry, Mark A Wyatt 1960 at zoho.com. So if anyone wants to contact me and tell me
Awesome.
their stories or whatever, feel free.
Awesome,
I'm
man.
hoping to get a website at some point.
Awesome
So I won't
stuff.
keep you any longer.
No, brother, I can say it's been an absolute
Okay.
pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it, man, and I'd love to get
Um,
you back on. I've definitely got to hear about the owl
um,
story now, so I've got to get you back on
oh yeah,
100%. But thank you so
yeah.
much, man.
And I was just yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tommy. And I've been listening to a lot of your older podcasts and trying to get into it, and I've
Thank
been
you, sir.
passing information on to people to listen. So because
I
yeah, it's
appreciate
really
it.
good. I think you've got a great approach. You're very laid back. You're passionate about it,
Thank you, man.
and yeah, it's been a very relaxed. Sometimes when I go on a podcast, I feel like it's more of a test almost. It's like I sort of feel I've got to be on my guard.
Yeah.
With
No, you
you,
haven't.
not at all. It's just like
Nah,
talking
man.
to your mate. Like it's like being down the pub. It's like being
Yeah.
in the pub without beer.
We could do with a couple of beers. That'd be even better.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah,
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you
yeah.
so much. Let's do it again
Thank you,
soon.
Tommy. Cheers.
Guys, if you've enjoyed the
Yeah.
episode,
I'm up for it anytime you want.
share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. We'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Thank you very much, sir.
Cheers. Bye.